meeting. Before we begin our agenda, I just want to make a comment, a congratulation, a recognition, and it's rare in the course of human events for this type of thing to occur, but most everyone in town who's been in town for a while, or even for a short period of time, knows Dr. Timothy Stone. The Doc Stone Award for Community Service is an annual award that's given out each year at town meeting. Those of you that don't know, Dr. Stone came to Southborough in 1947 after being a medical officer of the U.S. Army during World War II. He was a physician at both St. Mark's and Fay, and incredibly served on the Board of Health for 57 years in town. The reason I'm bringing this up is that, like I said, this Thursday is a rare event, and that event is Dr. Stone is turning 100. So I just wanted to recognize that, congratulate him, and say that to the extent any of us are fortunate enough to get to that point in our lives, it would be amazing. But he's an amazing gentleman and certainly deserves to get to that point. That being said, our first item on the agenda, 6:30, a joint meeting with the library trustees to appoint a new member. Mr. Wallace, do you need to call your board to order for us to begin our meeting?
We are.
Okay. So there are 5 candidates, and just to the extent that all the candidates are here, we have reviewed all of your information that was submitted in your application. We know a little bit about you based upon the papers that you submitted. Mr. Wallace, can you just give us a very brief summary or overview of what the trustees have done relative to these candidates in terms of, I understand you've met with them all and you've interviewed them or discussed the position with them?
Yes, that's right. We had a subcommittee that interviewed the candidates. It's not really an interview, but a sort of a chat, a session that we used to get to know them better, review their materials, and they had an opportunity to ask us questions. So another trustee and I met with each of the candidates and went through that process.
Okay. Are all 5 candidates here?
Just type roll call.
Could you just
Yes,
raise
they
your
are.
hand if you're a candidate? 1, 2,
2, 3,
3,
4,
4,
5.
5.
Okay.
Now, we can go through this one of a variety of ways, and that's interview one individually, which would probably take us into the early evening hours, or we could have all 5 of you maybe come up and sit in front of us here, and we'll just start shooting questions at you one at a time. Like I said, we already have read your information in your packet. We know a little bit about you. So there are 4 seats here. Why don't we just add another seat over here?
Pull that one up.
Pull that one up, and we'll just, we'll start by, you can introduce yourself so we can put a face to the paper, and then we'll start asking you questions. I don't know of any other way to do this other than to have you each individually come up and answer the same set of questions. And first of all, thank you all for applying for this position. It's an important position. Very rarely do we get 5 applicants for one position. Again, it's a credit to the library. It's a credit to the organization they run. It's certainly indicative of the community wanting to be involved in the library, given the large number of candidates. First, so why don't we just go down the line, just tell us who you are, and we'll start with that.
Dolores Fallon.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Jane Davis.
Welcome.
Carol Long.
Thank you.
Louise Clow. And Dale Burgess.
Well, welcome once again. Let me start off my questions, and you can take as however long as you feel you need, and since you're the one who ended up with the microphone, you get to go first. Tell me a little bit about what your skill set is and how you think you would be an asset to the Board of Trustees for the library.
Well, as I said when I met with the subcommittee, I wish I was a civil engineer and could help them with their flooding problem, but I'm not. But I do have the willingness and the enthusiasm as a very frequent patron of the library to come in and hopefully assist the director in, whatever he needs. And I'm a 27-year resident of the town, and I believe I have a good knowledge base of the town. I do work at the Mary Finn School, and that puts me in contact with a lot of people.
Thank you. Same question.
Okay, I've been in town since 1972 and been using the library since then. The skill set, I am currently and have been in the past on a number of not-for-profit boards of directors, so I understand all of that. I'm not a visionary. I don't write fiction, I read it. I write reports. When I say I'm not a visionary, I'm interested in things like how we can use the space better that's already there. I'm not dreaming we will suddenly find a parcel of land right in the middle of the town and build a multi-million-dollar library.
That's good. I'm glad you're not doing that.
That has a Starbucks in it. I'm interested not as a fundraiser, but in trying to figure out how we can get people to know about the Southborough Library Fund. I get a letter every year or so from the North Central Massachusetts something Community Foundation. I have no idea what it's about. Somebody told me once it's about the library. That's how you can, and there's got to be a better way to do that.
Thank you.
I'm Carol Long, and I've been involved in town government. I was a member of the Capital Budget Committee, 2003 to 2005. I've also been a publisher for 32 years, and I've just retired from John Wiley & Sons in New York, where I published technology books. I was responsible for a $5 million publishing program. I was responsible for the financial health of that program. And because of that, I think that I can offer some guidance, again, agreeing that we're not here for a multi-million-dollar expansion, but there may be ways. I'm also, I grew up in Southborough, and my mother's family, Eleanor Onthank Hamill, has been here for 11 generations, and obviously I have really deep roots.
So you're not going anywhere?
I'm not going anywhere, but I do think that my business background would be a help to the library.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jane Davis. I have only lived here for 22 years. I have 2 children who have moved through the Southborough school system. But as far as my qualifications, I've been involved with a couple of large volunteer-based non-for-profit organizations. And I think I have a fair bit of ability with budgeting, PR, marketing, and creative. I have been chair of an organization that runs a tennis league for ladies doubles, about 1,200 women in the eastern Massachusetts area. And I see that as a parallel to, it may not sound like it, a parallel to the library in that we provide a structure for patrons or clients, if you will, to pursue their passion, which is tennis in that case, or reading, libraries, and try to make that structure flexible enough that the volunteers that are managing it and the people that are participating in it are all coordinating, and that's a successful result. I have 2 children. They both come all the way through the library. Started in preschool, and now they're in their 20s, and they're still reading. So it sort of paid off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my husband and I have lived in Southborough for only 10 years. We both volunteer at the library book sales, and since 2013, I've been the secretary on the Friends of the Library Board. I've nearly 20 years' experience in marketing and communications, and hope to fill a gap potentially on the board about promoting what the library does for the town.
Thank you. So hold on to the microphone. We'll go this way this time. It's kind of a 3-part question.
Okay.
And one area that you think the library needs to better develop, and that's one. And how would you suggest it be done? And the third part of it is, if you're selected, what would you recommend the Friends, their top fundraising priority be? So, three-part question. What do you think the library needs to do to be better developed? How would you suggest they achieve it? And the top priority for the Friends?
Well, I think that one of the things that comes up again and again as part of the strategic planning, the Friends, and in the library is promoting what the library does and communicating what the library does. So if, for example, you don't have children, you're less likely to be in the library on a regular basis and less likely to be aware of what the library is doing. So I think that promoting what the library does so that people know what does the library do and what can it do for you. I think how to go about that is to start the process. For me, it would be literally finding out the nitty-gritty of how the library operates. So what is the day in the life of a library? If I literally spend a day in the library, what is happening there? What does the library do? And what are some things that maybe people are not aware of that need to be communicated? And I think finding out who those different personas are within the library, whether that's a mom, a senior, someone who's looking for a better job, what are those people looking for in the library? And then identifying the gaps in the communication to those different personas.
Thank you.
Are you going to repeat the question?
Sure, I would repeat it. One area you think the library needs to better develop, how you'd suggest they achieve that, and what your recommendation would be to the Friends for their top fundraising priority.
Well, I have to agree. I think better communication is crucial. I think there are a lot of programs that the current library staff are trying to put on through the Friends, through the donations from the Friends, that are poorly attended only because they are not promoted enough. I know there's a new sign outside, but over the winter, there was kneeling on the ground and trying to fit the letters in, and then the snow covered it up. I think better signage. I think better communication through media sources. We have all kinds of Facebook, Twitter accounts. The library has an account. The Friends have an account. I think better communication to the community, and maybe even getting into the virtual backpacks in the schools. I know they distribute kids programs, but I think the adult programs could benefit from better communication. I do volunteer 2 hours a week, so I have a pretty good idea. It's only 2 hours, but I'm surprised at how well I can see the functioning of the library, and all the suggestions that are there are very on target. They need the seating, the open area. The kids programs are, as I already said this, are very well attended. The science, the rockets, the bringing in the animals. But I think it's too bad that the space isn't utilized more effectively in the evenings. Reading groups or speakers, authors are not particularly well attended because I just think because people don't know about it. So I think media coverage, maybe signs down near the post office or the transfer station, or a bigger sign out here, or and I think that we're cruising into a generation where it's all electronic, reaching our clients and patrons through electronic means. So that's what I think.
Thank you.
I think one of the important things is really to harness the technology that we could have, and I think we need more of that. And I think attracting more high school students, the more technology we have, the more we'll attract them. I know we joked about it, but in essence, the library does need a bigger footprint. The town is 10,000 people, so on and so forth. Certainly the Friends of the Library, as far as fundraising is concerned, having a capital fundraising plan, and maybe that's a capital plan, a capital fundraising effort that goes on for 5 years or 10 years, and it's the traditional thing that where when and if we have the public safety building, or even now, it's that type of thing where you have the thermometer and, you see the monies growing, so on and so forth. I think that the fact that promotion is something that needs more of is true, but I think you need to have more to promote. And certainly in comparison to a couple of surrounding towns, in particular Westboro, Southborough does a really, really good job as far as the number of programs that it offers. And I think, using social media is necessary, but I think the library itself needs more technology. That costs money.
Thank you.
Well, I didn't come into this thinking that there was something missing in the library that I needed to fix. I love the
There may
library.
not be.
No, I love the library, and I'm a reader of books, and I want to make sure that as we get more and more technology, we still also have books so that people can walk through and browse and say, wow, I didn't know this author had a new book. I want to take it home today. I mentioned earlier, I'm interested in how we can get more funds through the Southborough Library Fund. I said I get this letter from an organization I don't know anything about. I get a letter from the Community House every year. I started getting letters from Southborough Open Land Foundation. One letter, they tell me what they do. I write out a check, it's in the post office the next day. I get a letter from this North Central Massachusetts something or the other, and I'm thinking, this isn't Leominster. So I would like to try to figure something like that out. I got interested in this by being asked to be on the Strategic Planning Committee and then facilitating a couple of focus groups. And when I found that a lot of people wanted to have this huge new library on, I'm not sure where or with what money, and one of the focus groups, everybody really just wanted coffee, not books. And so I thought, all right, maybe I need to look at this. I got a copy of the Library Commission Trustees Handbook, which was fabulously well organized. I read that and I thought, I could do this. I understand regulations. I know a little about building codes. I know what you sort of can do and can't do. So I don't know what I would tell the Friends to do with the money I helped them raise. But again, I'm just starting. And so I'm a quick learner, I think, about stuff like this, but I'm not coming into this with an agenda for what I need to change.
Thank you.
I think if you can walk into a library and the people know your name and they can say to you, I have a book I know you're going to love. I mean, that just tells you what a great library we already have. But that being said, I mean, I get the newsletter every month online. They offer services for every age group, from the young kids all the way through to, the older people that come to the reading group during the day. So I think that they should market their services more to keep the library full and active at all times. And I agree with Jane. I think it's a social media kind of thing, just to blast all the communication out there that this is what's happening at our library. In terms of the Friends of the Library and fundraising, I do think that we could get a better crowd at some of the evening events and, offer more speaker series or more events that would attract adults into the library in the evening.
Thank you. I'm going to open up to the rest of the board here. My questions were designed to give you an opportunity to talk as much as you wanted to talk, to give us an idea or an understanding of who you are. It's unfortunate that we're only allowed to choose one. It would be my privilege and honor to serve with any of you ladies on any other committee that you'd be interested in. I know your interest right now is on the library, but this town, the strength of this town is based upon its volunteerism. And I know you're singularly focused right now on the library, but unfortunately 4 of you may leave this evening disappointed, but that disappointed perhaps could be short-lived because there is a tremendous need in other aspects of town government, and you would be welcome with open arms for your participation, because those comments that I heard, you're going to make it a very difficult choice for this board. And I'm going to look to the library trustees for some guidance, but I'll open it up to the rest of my board.
No, I don't have anything to add, Mr. Rooney. especially the last part about, it's self-evident that, and fortunate and unfortunate at the same time that we have five such wonderful candidates for one position. Mr. Rooney started by saying we rarely get five. We rarely get two. And so I just want to reiterate his thanks to all of you, and I'll speak to the wait for the trustees as well.
Mrs. Fanta?
Again, I'm not going to duplicate what's already been said. Are any of you serving on another committee at this time? Okay. As a volunteer in the library, could I ask the trustees a question?
You do whatever you want.
A candidate here works in the library, I assume, as a volunteer at the staff desk. Would they have to discontinue that because they would be evaluating employees or the director, or would they have to, can they have both roles? Okay.
Mike. Richard.
Mike.
Just use the microphone, sir. Thank you.
The trustees, as a rule, do not work at the library because they, as you pointed out, they are responsible for the director. He's responsible for the rest of the staff, but I'd say no.
I mean, I think it's great that individual is stepping forward. Did you have that conversation with the individual that has put their name in to be considered?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
And I would assume if appointed, they would agree to step aside. Okay. That's my only question. Thank you.
Mr. Rooney, you all have said it quite well. I mean, it's rare that we do have this type of challenge, and I love it. But I also am going to look to our trustees for some guidance. But even the caliber of our candidates is clearly evident just in how those two questions were answered, but also in the written word of what we received with the town volunteer forms. That also isn't often done. Usually it's the volunteer form and kind of that's it. Here we have extensive resumes, incredible levels of education, and just the interest is clearly there. So we are not going to go wrong tonight.
Mr. Shea?
Yeah, again, and each of you presented strong personal statements in the material that you sent along, and your enthusiasm for the library is quite evident in that, as it is tonight. And I guess I would, I don't have any other additional questions at all. From what you've presented to us in writing and presented tonight, I'm interested now to hear how the trustees were able to sort through this.
Yeah, so let me just speak to the trustees. You should be obviously quite proud that your organization has engendered this type of interest. In my 5 years on this board, I can tell you without hesitation that we've never had a group of more qualified applicants for a single position, and that speaks, as I said earlier, to the organization that you have created and you maintain. So essentially, I'd like to punt the decision to you, based upon your area of expertise in this and what you've done to date. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. When I say punt, I'd really like to get your thoughts on who you believe would be the strongest asset to the team.
Well, as you have all pointed out, all of these candidates are terrific, and they would make excellent trustees and made our job very difficult. And we thank them all for applying. But I think we heard several of the candidates mention this, and it was one of our deciding factors, is we need to communicate better with the community, with business, with other organizations in town. And that's one of the things that we've lacked on the trustees, is someone with those specific skills that could help us communicate. So for that reason, and I'm speaking for all of the trustees now, but we are focusing on Dolores Fallon as the candidate who best represents those communication skills and can help us in future.
Any questions from the board to the trustees, or?
This, if I may, the appointments till the next election, till May, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the candidate all have thought about running before there's any appointment for reelection, for election, rather?
That I can't answer.
No, I know you can't, but I just wanted to know if they've considered that possibility, that it's just till May and they have to submit their names to the ballot. Okay.
Any further questions?
I just want to make sure I didn't mishear. Did you say you were or you were not speaking for the trustees just now?
Well, if I assumed that we would take a vote.
Yes.
And each trustee could vote. If you want to do that, we can. Otherwise, I mean, that's up to you.
Well, I do think we need it. We're taking a joint vote, are we not?
Yeah, well, I'd be interested in the position of the trustees as a whole, but individually as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we're going to have to vote, so we might as well have you vote as well.
Okay.
And you can do it either by way of motion or just indicate who individually you support to the extent it's different.
Okay.
And
well,
again,
I-
in doing this, it's not an indication that they are not appreciative of you putting yourself out here and attempting to be on this board. That's not what it's about at all. We just have to make a decision.
Absolutely. It was a very difficult decision, but it's unanimous that we would like Dolores to take the open seat.
Well, Mr. Wallace, that makes it much easier than having to individually vote. Well, members, does anyone have a motion or any further discussion before we vote?
I do. I just have a comment, and that is, I take the trustees' recommendation at its value. I was particularly interested in Ms. Davis's experience in terms of not just the volunteer experience in the library, but also in terms of her experience at the top of a fairly, or one or two large nonprofit organizations. And that sort of caught my ear as I was hearing it, and I would just submit that I believe she's a very strong candidate as well.
I'll add, similarly, Ms. Burgess, I know, is just wonderful with our students and our next generation of kids coming through. There's nothing stronger than having a great ability to read and a love of books and literature. And I also am very appreciative and would be supportive of Ms. Fallon as well. But I would just want to also note the great work that Ms. Burgess does in town with our kids, and it's so important to see that generation get involved in our library and really experience and grow with that love of books.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I guess I would like to have each of the trustees vote for their candidate.
Oh, yes, please.
We do that?
Don't interpret anything I say as prohibiting that.
Okay. So I vote for candidate Dolores Fallon.
Yep, Nancy Mayo, I vote for Dolores Fallon.
Marguerite Landry, I vote for Dolores Fallon.
Terry Ryan, I vote for Dolores Fallon.
Nicole DeBonet, and I vote for Dolores Fallon.
Thank you.
So it's a consolidated vote, as I understand. So that's, Ms. Fallon, you have 5 votes, so you are clearly the front runner at this point. Can I just ask all 5 of you, just before I make my decision, to give me a 2-sentence, or if you need 3-sentence, on the issue of improving communication with how you're going to do, what your ideas are on communication, because I see that as really the quality that is being examined. And why don't we start at the right this time?
That's a tough one.
It is a
because
tough question.
We see it at the schools all the time. You can continue to send out and send out and send out, and people have to read it. That's the only thing. We have the signage, we have the newsletters, we have the Friends of the Library, the library passes. A lot of it's word of mouth and just offering those things that are out there and getting more and more people to come into the library, and hopefully it just builds through that.
Thank you.
I think that, as you say, you can send out letters, emails, whatever, and people either read them or they don't. And I know from being very familiar with regulations, and when people are afraid of regulations, they'll send their kids to school because they have to send them to school. But they might not send them to the library because they don't have to send them to the library. It's hard to do a whole culture change of families or people who didn't grow up, as some of us did, having our first library card when we were 6 years old. We may have some unrealistic expectations about what people will do. I see a lot of things advertised at the library that look interesting, but there's only so many evenings of the week that I want to go to something. So I don't know. I think that's a really tough one to say, you know, how are we going to get more people in?
I think Jane had mentioned, and Dolores had mentioned marketing. Jane had mentioned social media. And really, if you put those two things together, and obviously Dolores has the background for that, more emphasis on social media. And maybe a way to do it is to get high schoolers more involved. And I think that, you know, they're kind of a real source. I certainly feel that, you know, young children, the children's programs at the library, and there are many of them, you know, are really good. And I think that older people take advantage of the library. But I think that that high school population is really where, you know, social media really feeds. And if there was a way to really reach out to the high schoolers to figure out some way to appeal to them, then they would spread the word themselves. And I think that that would create, you know, at least a little bit of a groundswell for that age group. And I think that's kind of a missing, you know, age group at the library. But both these ladies mentioned that.
No, I agree with Carol. That is the age group that's missing. And one of the ideas I had was there's a project going on, I guess in conjunction with the Historic Society, and trying to do some archival work and preserving some of as many as possible of Southborough's artifacts and history. And an idea I was thinking was in a way to get high school students involved, and they are experts on social media, I would say at this point, is some internships to maybe overlap with our elderly and our high school children, young adults, and you know, maybe a project where they could combine the two and interview the elder people and their experiences of living in Southborough, and in some way use the archives to supplement that project. But I think I already answered this. I think you need better signage and.
Well, within marketing communications, there's a process. So you would go through a creative brief process to identify the different audiences, and there's not going to be one way to reach everybody. So there will be different campaigns targeted to different audiences and the way that they, you know, absorb information, the way they want to be communicated to, so that you can persuade them to attend these programs and persuade them to use the library more. And part of it is making them aware of what the library has to offer.
So why don't I do this? Why don't I make a motion, because I think the outcome of this motion will obviate the need of voting on individuals individually. My motion would be to support the trustees' recommendation and appoint Ms. Fallon as the newest trustee. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The reason I went that way is because there are already 5 votes, and I didn't want to have to disappoint you all by having no votes. So I think that's the politically correct thing to have done, and I could not think of a better way to do it. But I am very serious in my suggestion, plead, recommendation that you consider other opportunities in town government. They may not be all as scintillating to you as the library, but I can assure you that there are various interests that there are various needs in this town that I know would benefit from your participation. And as I said earlier, it would be a privilege to be able to participate on a committee with you. With that, I would congratulate Ms. Fallon. For this is a appointment for how long?
1 year.
Till the next election?
Few months, 6 months.
So, to the extent that you four have a campaign machine, you may want to
Wide open next May.
get it going, oil it up. And Ms. Fallon, I assume they'll let you know when you are to report for duty, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You'll need to be sworn in by the clerk at your convenience, but certainly before your first meeting. And I want to thank the trustees again for everything you do, and for certainly bringing forth this tremendous group of candidates. And I think no matter what the choice is, the library is stronger as a result of this. So thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Ladies.
Yep, thank you.
See you.
Our So our next item, 7 p.m., committee appointments, Municipal Technology Committee. Mr. Purple?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to note that Roger Challen is in the audience. Roger is also a member of Municipal Technology Committee. It has been for quite a while. This committee was established as part of a town meeting action in April of 2007. Under Article 21, a sum of money, $35,000, was appropriated for improvements to the town's technology. And as part of that, the Selectmen had the ability to create and appoint a technology committee, which the board did that following December, and appointed 5 members. The committee, since that time up until about 2012, anytime money was spent out of that account, they gave recommendations to the Board of Selectmen as to whether this was an appropriate expenditure or not. There hasn't been anything spent out of there since fiscal 12. I had sent you previously a list of some of the things that were used. There were some software upgrades for departments. There was the town copier downstairs, the townhouse copier downstairs, and some other similar items. Right now, there are 2 vacancies on the committee. Mr. Ballantyne and myself also sit on the committee with Mr. Challen, and we are looking to get the committee active again. There's only about $4,000 left of that $35,000 that was appropriated in 2007. However, the committee did not feel they wanted to go forward and get additional funding until we had an idea of what we wanted to do for projects. And there will be some things coming down. Mr. Ballantyne and I have been discussing taking a look at our financial software. That's a lot bigger than $4,000. So that's something that I think would be beneficial to have the committee up and running for. And this evening, we have 3 candidates who've submitted their names for interest to be on the committee. And the board has 2 vacancies. So if you would like to proceed from there.
So all 3 candidates here, Mr. Mark Fallon, Ms. Rose Morrow, and Ms. Claire Reynolds. All right. Why don't we do the same procedure, since it seemed to be somewhat efficient, maybe not as efficient as it could have been. If you 3 can come up, and again, I want to thank you for volunteering. As I said earlier, the strength of this town is based upon its volunteerism, and again, we find ourselves with an opportunity or a situation where there are more volunteers than there are available committee slots, with this asterisk. And I would ask Mr. Challen, if I could impose on him, is, assuming you know nothing about these 3 candidates for a moment, would there be a major problem, impediment, restriction to having the committee increase by one with all three candidates? And the only reason I ask this is that I'm always hard-pressed to deny a volunteer that has an ability and interest in a particular committee, especially one of this nature that has been somewhat dormant, and maybe an additional set of eyes or additional energy would be beneficial to the committee. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, two thoughts. First of all,
Mike. Roger, microphone. We don't want to miss it.
Roger Challen, 29 Oak Hill Road, currently member of the Technology Committee. My first thought is I wasn't even aware that there were only 2 vacancies. So having said that, I see no impediment, for having 3 additional people. I think the more, at some point in time, numbers make certain things unwieldy, but at least based on the meetings we've had, at least for a number of years now, we could have certainly used more contributions as opposed to fewer contributions. So whatever value my comment is, I would certainly support increasing the number to 3 if we have 3 qualified people that are looking to volunteer for it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you're right in terms of at some point the numbers do become difficult insofar as if we were to ask all 5 applicants for that one trustee position, that may have become unwieldy. But given this situation, and given what I consider to be 3 people who have got an area of expertise and interest and qualifications to be on this committee, I'd ask my fellow board members, assuming you don't need to be interviewed, if they would be willing to appoint all 3. I assume that you would accept that appointment and move forward, but that's just my suggestion. And I'd like to hear the other members' comments.
I'm supportive of that suggestion, but I'd still like the opportunity to meet Mr. Fallon. I do know Rose Morrow and Claire Reynolds, but I think the public would like the opportunity to at least have Mr. Fallon speak for himself as to his interest in the committee before we make an appointment like that.
Okay. Well, why don't rather than singling out Mr. Fallon, why don't you each give us a Reader's Digest, 5-minute summary of who you are, why you're here, and what your interest in this committee is, and why you think you would be an asset to the committee. If you could try to focus on those 4 areas, that would be beneficial to us. Thank you.
So Mark Fallon, 36 Gilmore Road. I'm the husband of the new member of the Board of Trustees.
Duly
Very,
noted.
very proud of that. More proud of that than this, actually. I am a management consultant. I have a small management consulting firm, the Berkshire Company, and we help companies choose new technologies specifically with their document process, so how they get you your bills, how they process your statements. So that's what I do for a living. At the last candidates night, I heard about the need for this committee not even having enough for meetings, and then also the town, Mr. Haggerty talking about the probably lack of technology around your document storage, which is exactly what I do. So I really would welcome the opportunity to help the town. Actually, right before, somebody said to me, I'm going to ask for all 3 of us to be appointed. I think that's a great idea. I saw the resumes of the other candidates, and it's a pretty impressive group that I'm next to.
Thank you.
Hi, Rose Morrow, 6 Winchester Street. I applied for this knowing that we need to get this committee jump-started, so if I can be of service on this committee or any other committee, that's great for me. I work for the University of Massachusetts. I'm actually not working in an IT shop now, but I'm an analyst. I work with enterprise databases. I work with business intelligence. We have 2 IT teams that we work with, so I've been pretty involved in sort of back and forth with them and, helping the pharmacists that I work with to, specify what they want, and also with testing of systems. The main issue that I see that you would want a technology committee to kind of help with is that procurement is a little bit different with IT than with, say, getting a new roof of the townhouse, or, getting, a new tractor or something like that, and that the technology is changing so quickly. And what I would really like to see is that since this is such a town full of talented people with way more specialized expertise than I have, in all kinds of things, but who didn't step forward to this committee, is there a way to get them more involved on maybe more an advisory role? Say if there's, for instance, if we have a question on security, I'm sure there's someone in town there are many people in town that are security analysts, and, without asking them to, come and work for us for free, is there a way we can sort of bring them in, get them a little more involved in, civic life? And, I think that would be something I'd be interested in pursuing.
Thank you.
If I may approach the bench, so to
Sure,
speak.
the bench?
I just, well, with the new furniture, that's what it appears that way.
Sidebar, Your Honor.
What I did was I put together my lesson plan, being an instructor.
Thank you.
And the important part, just to draw your attention to, is the middle section there. It's actually kind of interesting because I thought about this and I said, if you look at the wide range of technology aspects that you have the hardware, the software, networking, cloud, everything, it requires a committee with people with various expertise. And actually, Rose was the one, and I put it in quotes because I didn't want anybody to think that I took it. Rose was the one who put it in her letter, where it said, and just to reiterate what she just said, to tap on the expertise that we have here in the town. As the town is moving forward with projects such as, if we do move forward with certain software packages, whether it's virtual town hall or any of these, the thousands of packages that are out there, we really need to have it looked at from the standpoint of, does it fit with our whole overall plan? I do not know, I'll be very honest, I do not know if there is a municipal technology plan that has been created. That's the first part of what I put together here. And if there was, it was the one that went probably with the $30,000, which actually needs now to be reviewed, revised, and updated. I think that in the first part of what I put together is that if I was on the committee, I would work with the committee members in putting that together and bring it to you folks, make sure that you approve of it, because as anybody dealing with technology, you have a short-term plan and a long-term plan. And so what are we going to do? One of the things that I'm sure you agree with is we do not want individual departments going and doing their own expenditures. The department heads have their own expertise. Most of them, I would be willing to say, probably technology is not what they focus on. And so that's why you need technology geeks to take a look at that and to see what's happening. As Rose also said in her letter, it would be really interesting to take a look and see what other towns are doing that really works, and not just implement something just because Westboro or Hopkinton or one of those places is doing it. So that's just my take on the whole thing. I think that if we did have, this is something that's close to me because it's what I do for my work. And I think that if you look at Mark, I listed what his strengths are from what I've never met him before. Rose, I know, and you folks certainly know me, and I think we would really be, and we've got Rogers as the master of all trades. So that I think it would really be a good mix of people.
So you would be supportive of the idea of expanding the committee by one member?
Absolutely. Actually, if you think about it, my recommendation would be to go to 5 people, a minimum of 5 people, and then add on whoever your 1, 2, 3, 4 town employees are, who you want to have involved with that.
Well, I'm satisfied at this point of having 4 to begin the process. Unless this board objects to it, I'd be inclined to make a motion to appoint all 3 candidates to the committee. The appointment would be for how long?
It comes up as a regular appointment, so it'd be June 30th.
June 30th. Mr. Challen, do you have any further comment?
I have a comment that doesn't directly relate to this vote, but I'd just like to add something. I had a little bit of a sneak preview a few minutes ago of Claire's document, and I also focused on Rose's comment, how important outreach to town residents could be, since clearly we have in this town a significant number of individuals that have a lot of expertise in this area. So that would be great. I will say that that topic has been discussed in public to some degree. I think we had a conversation in front of advisory at one time about this. It's been discussed in private, closet conversation, if you will. How do we do this? And to date, we've failed to be able to execute on that. So being able to execute on that would be of significant benefit to the town. I'm not exactly sure how to do it. Why we haven't been able to do it, whether it was lack of effort, whether it was lack of understanding how to go about it, I'm not sure. But if we could have some success in that area, I think we'd, the town would get rewarded many times over for that. But we haven't been able to do it so far, so maybe it's something that could be a focus of this committee to actually try to start to figure out how to make that happen.
Thank you. Anyone? Go ahead. Mrs. Faniff, do I go first?
Clarification, is this a committee or an ad hoc committee?
I was going to make that point.
With the we're expanding it now, and it sounds like it's going to be an ongoing committee, so I would assume that we fall under the warrant article of town meeting.
According to Aldo's opinion, it's not a committee that's created by town meeting or by state statute. Therefore, it does not fall under the requirement that you have to be a resident and a voter in the town in order to participate.
But did that answer your question as whether it's ad hoc or?
I thought that it only applied to ad hoc committees with a time-sensitive report.
Well, I mean, this committee has been in place since 2007.
Oh, I understand that, but I'm talking about.
The question is, does it meet the litmus test of it, whether or not it's an ad hoc? Because it does not have a determinate period of time.
Correct.
Now, the committee was set up with a determinant with one particular focus, which was making recommendation to the board for any expenditures from this fund. And the discussion tonight is looking beyond that, and I wholeheartedly support that. I think that would be great to have, take a benefit of that level of expertise to help us craft where we're going and how we're going to get there. But to your point.
I mean, I support where they're going.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. And I have no problem with the treasurer collector or town administrator being ex-official members to this committee. But I think we're at the point now that this is a full-blown committee who potentially will have funds or requests before town meeting to implement something. And I don't want to hinder their votes or call into question anything that might come about the appointment here.
Well, 2 things. One, I don't think there's an issue with if staff becomes ex officio.
Correct.
That's fine. The second thing is, like I said, there was never a charge that was ever done. I think that the board in 2007 simply appointed off the 1 or 2 sentences that were included in the article from town meeting. So there never was a committee charge put together. So I think it probably behooves the board to put together a formal charge so that the committee then has that direction. And so you can make the appointments this evening, but we can reconfigure the You can approve a new charge for the committee, and you can reconfigure how the membership is, so you can make the 2 staff members ex officio. We could do that at a future meeting.
I would ask the committee to come up with a proposed charge, given your area of expertise, and you essentially would like you to tell us what it is you think you can accomplish and how it can be accomplished. Mr. Semino.
I support the 3 candidates joining the committee. I want to be clear about that. I also want to be clear that, and I don't think you disagree, Mr. Rooney, this is not a precedent that we intend to set, where every time we have more candidates than we have slots, we're just going to expand the committee. We've done that once before recently. Personally, I supported it both times. I think it was my idea last time. So I'm certainly not against it in this case. I'm very much for it, but I want to be clear that that is not a sort of an intended habit, I think, that this board should get into, and each case should be taken as it comes.
Any other comments, Mr. Kalinda?
Just that, once again, we've done well, and really the town is doing well with the number of candidates that have come forward. I've had the pleasure of working with Ms. Reynolds on the EDC, and she is an outstanding contributor to that committee, and her level of enthusiasm and the type of work product that she produces for this town, for that committee, is wonderful. So it'll be great to have her on this committee. Ms. Morrow, your resume, there's so many computer languages that are those acronyms that I don't know what they are. They're quite they're impressive. That entire resume is impressive, and you will be a great asset to the committee as well. And I fully support you. And of course, Mr. Fallon, your resume as well speaks for itself. But also, in particular, thank you for your service. Anyone who raises their hand and volunteers to wear the uniform of the United States Army, 4th Infantry Division, thank you, sir, and I look forward to supporting you as well.
Mr. Shea.
Yeah, I also support expanding this by appointing all 3 tonight as well, but just would like to follow up on one of the comments that Mr. Fallon had made, and whether it was being at candidates night or watching it on TV afterwards, but thank you for either going to it or watching it. But also taking the message from it that there was a need, and then stepping up and acting on that as well. I think that there are many boards and committees that can be helped by many people in this town. I think there's a lot of talent, a lot of treasures in this town that could step up and benefit the town, and I think you're a great example of that, and thank you for doing that.
I think we have a strict limit of 2 appointments per family, per meeting, so you just got in under the wire.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to appoint I'll move in 2 parts, to expand the committee by 1 seat, and in so doing, to appoint the 3 candidates to fill the remaining seats.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Congratulations. You'll need to be sworn in by Mr. Hagerty. He's here now. I don't know if he's going to swear you in now, but you certainly need to before you can meet. Mr. Challen, you now have a committee. You have a committee that can meet. Congratulations to you, sir, and thank you for maintaining that committee presence until you got some members. We now expect great things from this committee, and in terms of initial action item, if you could come up with a revised charge or a charge moving forward as to how you best see this committee being able to serve the town moving forward, that would be helpful for this board. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Uh, 7:15, update on DPW operations. Ms. Galligan?
Nice to see you, Rose.
It's hot in here. Take my pen. Oh, mine's out. Right there. There you go, Eagle Eye.
Ms. Galligan, I understand you have 3 items that you are bringing to our attention. They're listed in the agenda in a particular order. I'd suggest you go in that order unless you have some compelling reason otherwise.
Nope.
Okay.
So the first thing I have is that for our transfer station person, I've been interviewing people. I'm down to a short list. We've been doing, today I did the final pieces of calling for the references. And based on the information, based on what the historically what we ever did was that if we weren't going to start somebody on step one out of the union contract in the grade for the position, we'd have to come back to the selectmen and ask the selectmen to approve the rate. And I'm just requesting that because we're fairly short-staffed right now, I have 2 people who just had operations. I've got someone who's been out 2.5 weeks sick. I've got 2 people on light duty. I really need to get somebody in there, and I wanted to see if the board would allow Mark to meet the person, interview them, and then work with me to come up with the rate so that he could approve it.
Any thoughts on this board in terms of that process?
I'd like to hear from Mr. Purple. Actually, Mr. Purple, your thoughts on that?
So I don't have an issue with that. Obviously, the rate is going to be bound by the union contract, so it is within the range of the union contract for that particular position. I'm very comfortable, doing that. Normally, I do get to meet the candidates, that she brings forward for recommendation, or that a department brings forward for recommendation before they come to you for appointment. So if you feel comfortable with allowing me to meet the candidate, approve the candidate, and then we set a starting pay based on their experience and the expertise that they bring to the position, I'm comfortable with that.
I think it's a great idea.
Question, Mr. Rooney?
Yes.
Any decisions within the approved budget? That you
Yes.
have? Okay. I'm comfortable.
Do you need us to make any formal vote on that, or is that just more informational?
I believe you need a vote, but Mark would know that better.
The board has voted on these in the past. You haven't seen very many of them because we don't tend to do a whole lot of hiring down at TPW.
Okay, and what would be the form of the motion?
Form of the motion would be to allow Ms. Galligan to hire into the vacant transfer station position at a step higher, at a step to exceed step 1 in the union contract with the approval of the town administrator.
Within the existing budget?
Obviously within the existing confines of the budget.
So moved.
Is there a second?
There is.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Did you get the gist of that, Jen?
It's on TV. It's on TV. It's on TV.
The next item is the staff engineer position.
Yep, this is just a heads up, just more for your information than anything else. Our staff engineer left in the end of June. I've advertised it. I haven't really had any response, and when I was thinking about it one day, I thought about the fact that we could probably use that as a contracted service, have somebody come in 2 days a week who is designated, who was set, always our guy, to come, but from a who actually worked for a consulting firm, but basically was farmed to us 2 days a week. So I talked to some consulting firms about it. They said, yes, this isn't all that unusual. And I just basically wanted to let you know that that contract would be coming up to you at some point, because it's not something you've seen before, and it's not something that, at least out of the DPW. So the employee would still be an employee of the consulting firm, but they would just be 16 hours a week. They would come and do work for us.
So your efforts to secure an employee have met with minimal interest insofar as there's no ability for that employee to train under a PE, which is necessary, which would be the next stepping stone for that person. So the next option you're suggesting is to go outside and utilize a consultant on an as-needed basis, or something more formal than that?
It would be more formal. It would be a set 2 days a week that they would come. We'd know which days, so I could prepare the work for them for those days. But it's a way to give me the extra hand that I need. At least now we'll see. If it doesn't, it's planned to be short-term, just 6 months. By the time budget season comes, I'll know if it's working well or not. And if it turns out that it's not, then we'll advertise again and keep pounding the pavement for someone. If it does work out, then we'll adjust the budget appropriately.
So this again would be within the confines of your existing budget?
Yes.
Any additional questions?
Should the town as a whole be looking for a staff engineer for the planning board, conservation, and instead of piecemeals?
The thing with what the planning board and the conservation use the staff, I mean, they do utilize our person, but they're able to, for all their inspections and all the other work they do, they're able to have the contractor put money in escrow for the inspections, for that work to be done, which is no money out of the pocket of the taxpayer. So that expertise also isn't what we're paying for down in our end, so we're looking for a staff level person, and the expertise you get out of somebody coming in and doing that is actually, you really have the whole firm behind you. We would have a lot more access to the rest of the firm in terms of if someone we had a problem with AutoCAD, they were having trouble stuck on something, they'd be able to call someone in their firm and get the answer instead of trying to go to me and me saying, I don't know, I'm stuck too. So, but as a whole, I mean, that's currently in my budget, and what I need is really, I think 2 days is sufficient at this point. And all the work that they do is stuff for the planning and conservation, is stuff that really can be done in that time frame.
So there'll be no overlap in a consultant engineer that you might be using and any of the departments might be using, paid for by a developer or individual?
No.
It would not be in the same organization?
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Rooney.
Thank you, Karen.
So you have in mind a specific, not necessarily yet, but when you make this appointment or this hire, this will be a specific individual who
Yes.
works, is this Fuss and O'Neill, did we say that?
No, Fuss and O'Neill is the one who does the work for the town as a whole for the
Right.
inspections. So no, it wouldn't be with them. It would be a consulting firm that, I mean, it would be one we were familiar with, who's used to our systems.
Okay, but you have an individual in mind who's going to put in 2 8-hour days for the town, and it's not going to be where you're calling the firm and saying, hey, I need somebody, send somebody, or whatever.
Correct, right. It's not on call, it's a specific.
Okay.
This is just a heads up, you don't need any sort of.
Correct.
Any
It-
further questions? Third item.
The third item, this is something that has come up because through the Park Central project and the ZBA, I've had a lot of people reach out and say Flag Road's unsafe. Then I've had, in other occasions, as people come in for the transfer station stickers, it gives people a lot of time to come and talk to me. And I have a lot of residents who are from other roads saying, we need a sidewalk, I'd like a sidewalk. So as a whole with all this, I think that the town needs to look at an overall plan for sidewalks and constructing new sidewalks. We have a very unwalkable town, mostly because of the reservoir and Route 9. It's difficult to cross. It's the same reason our water system has so many tight spots in it, and our traffic gets to be so bad in those certain roads. But what I would like to do is just get a group together who can help set up a priority list of these are destinations people would walk to. These are, neighborhoods that would be wanting to utilize that, a sidewalk to get to that destination, and, on through streets, because that's where people are asking for them. Most of the cul-de-sacs either have them or people are not as worried about it. So a lot of the neighborhoods, but it's the main roads like Flag Road, Marlborough Road, Framingham Road. There's no sidewalks on them. And people in the neighborhoods off of those would often come in and ask, can we have sidewalks on that road? And so I've kind of been treading water on it, saying, for me to prioritize it doesn't make sense. Let's have someone from the trails, because there's, I forget what it's called, the Green Necklace or something, that they're trying to connect together. Somebody from recreation, the schools would have interest in it, and then basically some at-large people, and look at what we can find for a committee to actually come up, prioritize, and then disband the committee, because once the list is made, then it's my job to assign some numbers and try to get some money from town meeting periodically to get the list.
So just to frame this, you get inundated with requests for sidewalks all over the town.
Yes.
And you're looking for some way to somehow come up with a prioritized list of sidewalks based upon input from the schools, recreation, trails, and any other department or committee or individual that has an interest. In other words, trying to focus the areas that should have a priority for sidewalks. And you feel quite correctly, I believe, that should not just be based upon your decisions as thumbs up and thumbs down as to which streets get sidewalks, but you want to have a committee formed. I guess my only question is, well, I have a couple questions, but one of my question is, the short-lived term that you are proposing this committee exist. Is this committee's work just going to be in a room with a map, or is it going to involve citizen intake, output, interaction? How do you envision this committee actually working?
It would definitely be open meetings. I guess I'm looking at it similar to how the Main Street Working Group works, where you have a map in front of you, you're talking about what would we set as criteria, you take input from people on that. You know, if this is our criteria, these are the neighborhoods that are near those destinations, or however we work it out, so that there's a criteria, then it goes to the next step. And ultimately, it shouldn't be more than 4 or 5 meetings, and they really could be done quickly, at which point it's just a prioritized list. And at that point, like I said, it would be, I'd have to come forward to town meeting and say, look, based on this list, this is our first priority to get a sidewalk in. This is what I think engineering and costs are going to be, engineering and construction costs, and try to get the money at town meeting.
So it would be similar to a town master plan for sidewalks?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that needs to be done. I don't think it's something that you should have to shoulder the burden on making the decisions all yourself. I understand other towns do it in this fashion as well. But I'll open it up to the board to see if they have any questions or concerns. I guess first, any concerns with the objective in terms of having a committee work in this manner?
I do. I'm willing to hear from the rest of the board as well, but my first reaction to this was, I don't like this as a committee, because next, you'll have people saying, well, I want to be on a committee that decides which roads we repave next, or where the new water tower is going to be, or whether the water mains are old enough to be replaced or not. It shouldn't be up to Ms. Galligan. We should get to do. Ms. Galligan, I appreciate that you're looking for input. And if you are, then I'm prepared to defer to that. I just want to be sure that there isn't a sort of handing too much off to the citizenry here. Where sidewalks ought to go seems like the kind of thing that, to take the other direction, 90 days max, Mr. Rooney, I think is plenty to do what Ms. Galligan is suggesting. So the brevity of the life of the committee sends me in the other direction, like, okay, I can live with it. But those are my not completely coherent thoughts on this, that I don't like it as a committee, but if it's a short one and we can get it done, fine.
Mr. Shea.
So I'm just curious, did you consider having or involving the Public Works Planning Board in this activity? And rather than the creation of a new committee, but take advantage of one that exists already and is interactive with Public Works?
No, I didn't consider them to be necessarily the right source to go to, because we have, it's not a vast representation of the town. We have three single young professionals, and then we have 2 seniors. Only one person on the whole committee has kids. It's just something that as a group, like involving the schools, involving the trails, involving recreation, those are people who are out there already looking at this, who sponsor stuff like walking to school days or different stuff like that. And that seemed to me that it's more looking at the user group versus somebody who's already in place who aren't necessarily the user group. And, even from the areas they come from where it's not a very spread out committee, so that's the Public Works Planning Board, whereas this comes up with its majority of the people are actually department heads who are looking into this stuff already, and then the trails person isn't, and then obviously the two people at large.
Do you think that Public Works Planning Board could be a group, though, that could reach out to the Trails Committee and search for input, volunteers to assist them in this endeavor, to reach out to school committee or others involved with the schools, others throughout town to...
It could be done through that process, but that's when I go back into kind of what Mr. Smino said, where it's just something, it's a very set thing that we're looking to do. We could get it done in 3 months, and then the list is there. And at that point, I would think that the committee would bring it to Public Works Planning Board and say, look, this is what we've come up with as our priority list, and looking for the support at some point at town meeting. They'd go to the select, the way Main Street Working Group did, where you go and you get the input, or not input, but you get the buy-in from other committees who are going to work with trying to get the money. But honestly, it's just not something that I think is, at this point, the Public Works Planning Board is looking into some trash stuff with green tech, and that seems to be working, but this is just something based on the people who are complaining about the Park Central effects on Flag and how unsafe they already thought Flag was. I just didn't think that this was something that you can let go for very long before, people are saying, what's the town doing? We told you this was unsafe. And as the DPW director, I can't let that comment go without doing something about it.
Mr. Kalenda?
So has there been interest in this committee already? Have people identify themselves as wanting in?
I've spoken to the department people. And, the trails, I've spoken to recreation, the schools, and public safety, and they're all in on that. It makes sense that they should be involved, and that they would like to actually help participate with that.
And you would like a sidewalk committee?
I would.
I would like to support you in that sidewalk committee. So
thank you.
We could talk for hours, I trust, on a sidewalk committee, but it sounds like a nice idea, limited in duration. Let's do a sidewalk committee.
Mrs. Faniff?
I share some of Mr. Shea's concerns. We have a Public Works Planning Committee. I really think they need to hold a public forum. And if other committees are working on a concept, I think we need to see what their work product is, so we're not duplicating it. Now, as far as public safety and road sidewalks, Pocketville Road has been on the radar since we redid Finn School. And there was a petition that you and I have...
Absolutely, and I have a petition from Middle Road, and I have...
No, but let me finish, Karen. I'm not criticizing.
But this is where this all stems from.
That's my concern, that if we don't put individuals on it that feel that they're personally impacted, we're going to be critical. We're going to be criticized. I think it belongs in the forum of the Public Works Planning Committee. That's their purpose, with the department heads at their meetings, and have them hold a forum and put a map together. There's been a lot of research by Kevin Moran, John Bolin, on all of the school programs, even on Pocketville Road. I mean, the speed humps on Pocketville Road was to calm the traffic and to keep the buses off of Deerfoot Road. I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, and you are getting a lot of questions. I'm not making light of that, and I don't want to pick up your phone either. But let's put it where it belongs. Let them have a forum. Let's find out what they come up with as a community, instead of individuals saying what's best for all of us. Similar to the forum we had on housing, the open meeting that Main Street had. We got to start somewhere. And if Recreation and Trails are already putting together something, which I saw it online, that's already done.
They're doing stuff for trails.
Right, that should be out there for the public to see now, because there's easements that need to be taken for that, and I know that because my family's part of it.
But again, this is just a master plan to look at so that I can move forward with it. It doesn't have to do with, and the thing is it's the same thing. You had the Main Street Working Group go together to do something when the Public Works Planning Board existed at that point too. There's a point where we took in different people to look at it, and because we wanted to have a different cross-section. We've got people at large that we're talking about, but again, they can have, just like the Main Street Working Group had public meetings and public forums, an ad hoc group can have that, because Main Street's an ad hoc group also. And it's just, it's a way to have it so that we can, that group just focuses on that. It's a quick, short term, and then we can say, all right, you know what, at least I have an idea, because right now I have at least 3 streets that I do not know which one would be the best one to go to, and they're all tons of residents calling, wanting them, and what do you do? How do you pick? The squeaky wheel? Is it the people who are the least squeaky? And that's really where you get into having a group to say, well, you know what, this connects this does this. You know, there's been a lot of talk about getting this over here at this school. The school would like to do this, and that's why I think it just makes sense to have a group from you need public safety because they know where there are accidents for pedestrians. You need somebody from the schools because they know where their kids are trying to go or where they're trying to get them. You need somebody from recreation because they're trying to walk the kids to places and they're trying to walk things. I mean, we have certain destinations in town. We don't have sidewalks to them. Karen Muggeridge brought it up at the Main Street group meeting at one point that there's no sidewalks on Marlborough Road, and we're trying to install sidewalks on Main Street and then on the south side on Corderville, but we're not taking anything with Marlborough. And actually, the Main Street Working Group did put that in at the last meeting. But that's why it's somebody to look at it just a different group of people. And maybe you pick 3 or 4 because we know there's a person on certain roads. We know there's people who would volunteer to be on it. That's why the at-large people make sense. But they need to be through streets. There's no point putting on a cul-de-sac right now.
Yeah, I think the diversity issue of a new committee is important. It makes sense. I do think also, though, that the Public Works Planning Board has got a role in this, but I do think, I hear what you're saying, and I think we all would agree that having participants or interests reflecting the schools, the trails, recreation is clearly beneficial to this ultimate decision on prioritizing sidewalks or not prioritizing sidewalks. At the same time, the hearings or the meetings can be in conjunction with and based on any research that has been done by the Public Works Planning Department. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Right. I think they can work together. And that would, I believe, address Mr. Shea's concern and address Mrs. Fannett's concern, but at the same time, it would address Ms. Galligan's concern about diversity issues and creating a priority list.
I guess I don't understand, because even when we had the Sidewalk Safety Committee way back when for the schools, that wasn't part of the Public Works Planning Board. That was it was a different group made up together to look at specifically just that issue.
I have a suggestion, Mr. Rooney. But a question that's precedent on my suggestion. So this group comes up with a priority list. It doesn't say in the charge then whether this board or you, what happens if you agree or don't agree with that list? Is the presumption that whatever that list is will go and then you'll just work down it, or
Well, right. I'll be part of the committee, and part of what we'll talk about as reasons why something is a good idea or why something might need to go down on the list is partly constructability. You might want to get some done. So as part of it, when you set the priorities of what would make it a good street and a less good, and then once that's made, at that point, it's a plan that we can I can work with the plan. It doesn't, because it's not something that we're funding as, we're going to come up with this plan and then fund it. This is something that this is a plan, and then let's look to execute the plan like we do with the water system master plan. Okay, this is where we need to go next, and let's look and see how we can get that done.
I think that, so my suggestion was going to be, Mr. Rooney, that you alluded to it, Ms. Galligan, that if this is a list that you're going to take and run with, or depending on funding, maybe a solution to this little sticky wicket is to take the committee membership of you, Ms. Galligan, and give it to a member of the Public Works Planning Board. So you got 1 member of Trails, 1 member of Public Safety, 1 member of Public Works Planning Board, Rec, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You participate in the meetings as you would anyway, but you're not actually a member of the committee. Does that solve our problem?
that's fine if
I also
people.
have another question. Maybe it does. I don't know, you weren't answering, so I had a question while you were thinking.
I didn't know who he was asking, so sorry.
You,
I'm throwing that out to the room, frankly. What do you think, Terry?
I guess ultimately, whose decision is it? If a sidewalk needs to go in, if you
Town
didn't come here
meeting.
tonight, whose decision is it?
We haven't installed a sidewalk since I've been superintendent. We did one on Central Street in the 15 years I've been here. But John Bowen was at the time. Actually, that's not true. We did Fisher Road, and that was part of, and again, it came through as people wanted it in the neighborhood, and there was a 40B going in, so money got put in to do that through the 40B. And so a lot of our stuff's very piecemeal versus being able to go to the planning board and say, look, when this comes in, this is where we're looking to put sidewalks in. You know, we're looking to try to connect this. And it also gives us a little latitude to say, look, as, you know, you don't want to put a sidewalk in because you're on a cul-de-sac, but build that many feet over here at this location. A lot of towns do that. A lot of towns do have sidewalk funds, or you install somewhere that the town wants rather than where you're building.
So, all right, so ultimately, who would that warrant article come from? Is that a selectman article? Is that
It would be my article supported by you guys, but town meeting really makes the ultimate decision.
Couldn't you reach out to all these individuals anyway without a sidewalk ad hoc committee? And wouldn't you do that in the normal course of your business anyway? Or are you looking for a defined set of, you know, you're looking for a named committee so that you can then go to planning and say, all right, here's what the committee came up with, not me or not my team?
It's more so that, because I'd like to start trying to install some sidewalks, and I'd like to go to town meeting for some money for some. And it's really because right now there's a lot of people asking. And I really prioritizing it at this point, I can make these 10 happy, or I can make these 10 happy, and those 10 are very unhappy.
Right,
You know, and we
that's
can't do it all.
To that point, I mean, Ms. Faniff raises an interesting question about, all right, shouldn't we have resident input? Well, surely the residents should show and be participating in it. I'd be hesitant about, okay, what are the prospective sidewalks out there? We need to make sure we have 3 from this, and now we're gonna pit them against this street over here. You know, what if we only have 2 and only 3, you know, and 3 came over here as volunteer? You know, you're gonna pit, what do you wanna do? We're gonna pit, you know, street against street? I mean, ultimately, you know, it still comes down to, I think, you and your, you know, judgment with those you reach out to. Clearly, the Public Works Planning Board, clearly other, you know, recreation and other groups you're gonna reach out to anyway. If you think that the best way to do this is to have an ad hoc committee, you know, there's probably 5 different ideas on this board of things that we could do, you know, and none of them are gonna be perfect. Yours may not be perfect, but you're the one advocating for, you put the most thought in this before you arrived here tonight.
Right. I mean, the thing is, you're right. I mean, I would go to go to town meeting, I would absolutely go and talk to all those people anyway and try to get it. And it's fine to go that route. It's just, I have found that something like that, where you're really looking at something that's more of a capital item, that it does tend to be a little difficult for town meeting to buy in that, hey, you don't even live in town. Is this really where we want to go with it? You know, where's the data? And, you know, I can obviously get that, but I didn't know if I felt as though going to town meeting with a committee that says, yeah, that look, this is what they found. I mean, I found that worked much better with Main Street Working Group than it did, and the results really are very, very similar from what we proposed and what the Main Street Working Group, the changes are so minimal in reality, and because it was residents looking at it was what gave it a lot more traction and believability to the residents. And I mean, I'm good either way, because frankly, I just think, I know we have so many people who want them right now. I would love to be able to get moving on a program.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very unpopular committee insofar as they choose 10 sidewalks, then there's going to be 15 or 20 other people in town whose sidewalks are not going to get done. And that's just the nature of the decision-making process. And there's no way to avoid that. But in terms of the makeup of the committee, I do think it's important to have Southborough residents on it, and I would suggest that you have a member of the schools be a resident, a member of the trails be a resident, a member of the recreation be a resident, a member of the Public Works Planning Board be a resident, and maybe one or two other at-large, non-member committee participants, and you also as a non-voting. And we come up with a priority list. I mean, there's no, as Mr. Kalenda said, there's no perfect solution to this such that everyone in town is going to be happy. It's just not going to happen. There's limited funds, and there's numerous sidewalks to be done. And I don't blame you for wanting to have some guidance or to go to town meeting and getting funding for this. So it seems to be a solution. Is it a perfect solution? No, but it's a solution in which it involves numerous perspectives. It involves numerous committees, and we can represent at town meeting that it's residential-based decisions, and they're going to make their decisions not on self-interest, but on what's good for the town. To me, that makes the most sense. Perfect solution, no, but it's certainly a solution. Comments, Ms. Hasselbankian. Go wherever you want.
Right.
That's what all you lawyers wanted, right? That's why you came up with this setup.
Yes, should be live.
Desiree Asselbekian, 137 Woodland Road. As all of you know, I do chair the Public Works Planning Board that has been talked about this evening. I will let you know, and I want the public to know very specifically that what I'm saying is not on behalf of all 5 of us. I'm here as an individual who happens to serve.
Oh, I thought that was left on.
I don't know where to push. Oh, sorry. Desiree Asselbekian, 137 Woodland Road. As I said before, without the mic, I am the chair of the Public Works Planning Board, but I want to make it very clear that I have not talked to any other of the 4 members about what I'm going to say.
No open meeting?
No. In reviewing the materials in the packet agenda, I had anticipated coming to speak with you tonight, specifically about this ad hoc sidewalk committee that's being proposed. I have no problem with sidewalks. I think every single road should have a sidewalk, so that's not the issue. The issue more that I am wanting to bring before you is something that I've talked to individual members of the board about over the years, and that is the role of the Public Works Planning Board. In 1991, as you know, when the Department of Public Works was instituted by home rule petition by town meeting, a Public Works Planning Board was developed. That planning board was to advise the Board of Selectmen on matters of planning, managing, and financing of the Public Works Department. It is my personal opinion that over the years, the Public Works Planning Board has not been utilized to its fullest capacity. For 2 or 3 years, it did not even meet. That was during the years of the Main Street Working Group, might I add. Now we have 5 members of the board who are very willing to put in their time. We're actively, over the course of the summer, even meeting in subcommittee and in conjunction with the Green Technology Committee relative to some transfer station issues that we talked to the Board of Selectmen about a couple months ago. We are more than the transfer station. We are more than helping Ms. Galligan review water rates. And we have a lot more to offer the public. And I take quite exception to the fact that saying because we don't have children or because we are of a certain demographic, that we cannot serve our entire community. I again, am speaking on behalf of myself, but I know that all other 4 members would concur with me in that when we come to our meetings, we have the community's best interests at heart always, and we want the Public Works Department to thrive. It is the largest municipal department that this town has. There are significant infrastructure issues, budget issues, I'm hearing, you know, that we're short-staffed, almost 5 or 6 people due to different things, but yet we've continued to cut the staffing from 21 employees down to 13. So I guess the reason why I'm asking for your ear tonight is if the selectmen whom the Public Works Planning Board reports to in an advisory role doesn't want our advice and doesn't want us to participate, then please let me know, because I would be the...
I heard that at all.
If I could finish my sentence,
Please do, but
please, Chairman.
I haven't heard that at all. I've heard just
there's
the
been,
opposite.
I don't think so. There's been a significant amount of issues that are relative to the Public Works, where the Public Works Planning Board is never even spoke to, consulted with, asked for their opinion, and it's in Home Rule statute that we are there to participate. And again, as I was trying to, you've kind of lost my train of thought here. If this is not a committee that the town or the Board of Selectmen feels is valuable anymore, and that could be, and that's okay, please let me know so the 5 of us are not wasting our time in wanting to volunteer to this community, particularly to your board. I'll write an amendment to this home rule petition to get rid of this committee.
So is there a motion to disband the...
You can't do that. It's
No,
town meeting.
Because you won't hear of one. You won't hear of one
I'm asking for your
either.
guidance and direction is to really, do you even
Let me-
value
let-
this
let- where this
committee, and
came
should
from,
we
though.
continue?
Let me just respond. Let me respond. It's not my intent to minimize or relegate the Public Works Planning Board to a lesser role than what they should be doing. I don't think, though, that the Sidewalk Committee is something that your board should or even would want to do. I do think you should have a member on the committee, but I don't think that your committee should make the decision on the priority of sidewalks.
Bigger than just sidewalks,
that's what we're
Mr.
talking-
Rooney.
no, that's
And
what we're
that's why
talking-
I'm bringing
no,
it up.
that's what we're
I would
talk-
hope that you would think about that in the future,
That's-
so we could get some
We're
resolution.
talking about the sidewalks tonight. That's what I want to talk about tonight, the sidewalk issue. And I do think that there's a role for a member to be on the committee. I don't think the prioritizing of the sidewalks in the entire town should be concentrated in the Public Works Planning Department. I
Well-
think the committee needs to be involve a lot more diversity, and it's not
And we can bring
anything-
in people. I would never try to keep people out
No.
from participating in a sidewalk study, a master plan of sidewalks, and it's something that can be done very quickly. And you already have a 5-member body who's willing to do it.
Well,
That's what we signed up for with our charge.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Rooney, thank you. Ms. Assapigian, I think you can tell from the conversation that's taken place at this head table, we don't even agree. And it has been suggested by 3 of the members sitting here that Public Works Planning Committee play some role in it. I personally feel they should play the entire role in it with Ms. Gallagher in a forum of some nature to get started. That doesn't mean my colleagues agree with me, but I think we're in agreement that there's a role for your committee. I don't think we're in agreement as to how it plays a role, but I don't think anyone ever said not to include the Public Works Planning Committee in this conversation that's taken place this evening.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Perhaps you didn't, but it was stated.
No, I think Ms. Galligan, what she stated is that the diversity which she believes is important on this committee. And that's not a negative comment with regards to the composition of your committee. It's not. It's the issue with regards to recreation, trails, schools, and whatever the other one.
Public safety.
Public safety. Those are the components of the committee to make a list of priority of sidewalks in town. And I happen to agree with her.
I agree with her wholeheartedly, but there's no reason why the Public Works Planning Board can't lead the charge and bring in other people for this particular project.
Yeah, but we're talking about committee membership. It's different than bringing other people.
a whole new committee.
Well, that's, we
Thank you.
disagree.
Thank
That's
you.
all right. We
That's
just
fine.
disagree.
But I would hope, Mr. Chairman, and perhaps we can talk privately about getting this on the agenda or on the forefront at some point. I think a redefined role of exactly what the Public Works Planning Board is responsible for needs to have a greater discussion, because we need to shore this up and figure out where we're going
Why
from
don't I
this.
assign this to you then? Why don't you prepare an objective or what you believe the charge of
The charge is in writing, sir.
All right, so you don't believe anything needs to be changed?
It's whether or not you want the utilization of it on a continuous, involved basis. I think and I can provide this to you, I think you need to look at what the charge already is.
Yeah, well, I am familiar with,
do it.
I am familiar with the charge, but I'm just not sure that the sidewalk committee fits within that charge. That's where we disagree.
Well, hopefully, we can put that on a future agenda, and we can discuss it.
Not the sidewalk committee part of it,
No,
but
I'm
the
talking about the Public
That's
Works
fine.
Planning Board.
Yep. Any other questions to Ms. Galligan or any thoughts about this committee?
I think you've identified, a pretty diverse group there that Ms. Galligan, I'd like to hear from you. Does that sound like a committee that would work for you?
Yes, and I think having a Public Works Planning Board person instead of me for a voting member makes sense. It's not a problem at all.
And Ms. Hasselbankian, can you get your committee to appoint somebody to this committee?
We're having a meeting in 2 weeks.
Perfect.
It
Perfect.
shouldn't be something that, sidewalks are nice things, all right? This shouldn't be something that, it seems like there's a lot of friction, and it must be coming from somewhere else, because this sounds like a nice thing that we're trying to do here tonight, the sidewalk committee. So you came up with a nice idea, Mr. Rooney. I think it works well for Ms. Galligan. Would like to hear what my other members think as well.
What's the idea, Mr. Rooney's idea?
Repeat it again, Mr. Rooney?
The idea was to have a committee in which there is a member of the Public Works Planning Board,
Yeah.
Recreation, Trails,
Public safety.
Public Safety,
2 members at large.
and 2 members at large who are interested.
So exactly as printed, except substitute a member of Public Works for DPW superintendent.
Correct.
And schools.
I agree with that idea.
Can we change schools to K-8 school committee member?
Mr. Kalenda, will that narrow the pools?
Well, they're familiar with the school issues.
You're saying the appointing authority will be K-8, but it can be anybody in the school system?
No, it'll be someone in the K-8, on the K-8 school committee.
Well,
Um,
I don't know that I would limit it to that.
No, I wouldn't
myself,
either.
because somebody with, and I'll just use an example, someone who only has a kindergartner
Yep.
in the school system may not be as up to speed on all the issues as somebody who has a freshman in high school whose parent has just gone through all of the schools and seen issues in all of the school buildings.
and I think maybe we see who we get. So maybe not limiting it that way, Ms. Vaneth, is.
That's fine. How about someone from the Council on Aging?
You can add another
I'd
person.
add a member,
I mean, I
honestly,
think
the more
Recreation
input-
and the Trails Committee is a duplication of the same department, because they're reviewing that plan themselves. So to me, that's one and the same.
I think that's a great suggestion.
And the needs are different, and you might have someone from the ADA committee or somebody that's familiar with the ADA issues on the Council on Aging.
No, that's a good trade.
That's a great suggestion. Mrs.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion?
Mr.
We there yet,
Semino.
Mr. Semino?
Yeah.
We could talk about this for a good hour at least.
I'll move that we appoint a sidewalk construction recommendation committee to be made up of 7 members as follows: a member of the Public Works Planning Board, the Recreation Director, a member of the Council on Aging, a public safety official, and 2 citizens at large, with the 7th member to be appointed by the school superintendent, who will be a member of the Southborough school system. The appointment will be for 90 days from the date that the committee is constituted with actual members, and not from today's date. The charge will be as written in the draft in front of us.
Second.
We do, just one discussion point then. Would it be 90 days from the date of their first meeting? Do they meet once a month? And what would you foresee?
I would say we populate the committee at our next meeting, assuming we get the names we need
I
by
want to
then.
make sure they don't only get 2 meetings. I don't know, I mean.
Well, they
if
can,
you
they can
meet-
have as many as they want, right? Once they get going?
Yeah, I mean, what do you foresee?
Well, usually the ad hocs, they meet as needed to get the job done, so
Okay, right.
it'd
So it
usually
could
be more
as
than
many-
once a
As
month.
much as they want. It can be daily.
Yeah, yes, they could.
I would say just to keep it clean, it's 90 days from the day we appoint, and hopefully
Yeah,
they'll
I
they'll
like
be.
that, okay.
In the evenings.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, Mrs. Semino, when you read a member of the school,
Yeah, so appointed by the superintendent, but a member of the Southborough school system. That could be
System,
a
what does
teacher,
that
it could be
mean?
an administrator, it could be, that's what's here, and that's how I read it.
okay.
Is that what you intend?
Yes, when I talked to the superintendent, there were people, I don't know if they were residents or not, but
Yeah.
people who are aware.
No, I omitted the residency requirement from my motion, and I should point that out, Mr. Rooney, because, for example, public safety may not meet that either, and I don't want to foreclose that.
So why did you omit the resident part from the school?
Almost all of the, well, a member of the Southborough school system could be an administrator or a teacher who is in the K-8 system that knows it well and what we need. Almost all of the committees who are populating this ad hoc committee are made up of town residents, so I'm not worried that we'll be underrepresented in terms of town residents.
Well, given the numerous discussions on the main motion, Mr. Semino, could you please rephrase it so that we're all operating under the same understanding of what we're voting on?
Sure. So the motion is to appoint a sidewalk construction recommendation committee made up of 7 members, as follows: a member of the Public Works Planning Board, the Recreation Director, a member of the Council on Aging, 1 public safety official, 2 citizens at large, and the 7th member to be appointed by the superintendent, but who must be a member of the Southborough school system. The appointment will be for 90 days from the day we populate, which I assume will be our next meeting, and the charge will be as printed in the draft that we have in front of us tonight.
Is there a second?
I did second that.
Any further discussion?
I think they all should be residents, with the exception of Karen.
I
Well,
think we're gonna end up with that anyway, without specifying it.
Not necessarily.
On the last one, I will defer to our superintendent. I think she is outstanding. We'll pick a great member, so regardless of citizen of Southborough.
I think at least 5 of the 7 will be residents regardless.
Yep,
I
I'm with
agree.
you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 1. Mrs. Faniff opposes. You oppose based upon the residency issue?
I've seen a petition that Karen has been heavily involved with over the last year and a half, and she's contributed a lot, and I just don't want this to go sour. So I think there's a big interest in this, and I'm sorry, I think it needs, it's too broad, it's not defined, and I don't like priority list unless the community is all involved in it.
Yeah, but the only problem with not liking priority lists unless the community is
window
all
is too
involved
small,
is that we're
John.
not gonna get any decisions.
The
That's the
window
problem.
of decision-making here is very small,
The 90 days.
yes. By the time we get the residents or the individuals in here to a point, they get sworn in, they meet. We're running up against town meeting if that's your goal. I mean, if it's an ad hoc committee, there's a timetable here. And if we're running into town meeting, or we pass town meeting, then it's more than an ad hoc committee.
Well, the decisions of this committee are going to be anything but welcomed by the entire town.
But the model we've been using is the Main Street Working Group, which are citizens of the town, taxpayers of the town, working with the DPW superintendent and the police department and fire department when necessary.
But
And
the-
it's worked.
The only possible non-resident of the town would be the public safety official, correct?
And the school official possibly.
And I'll just point out as well that the Main Street Design Working Group did the majority of its work to prepare the report that it did in advance of the DOT hearing in about a 6-week period compared to the 90 days that this group has. So I think 90 days is achievable. I think it's aggressive, but I think it's achievable as well.
I also think that there's going to be tremendous opportunity, not opportunity, but opportunity for public input into the committee. I mean, the committee is who they are. They're going to have public meetings that I assume are going to be pretty darn well attended, similar to I mean, maybe even more than the Main Street working group meetings where when the word gets out that we're talking about making a priority list for sidewalks.
Well, Mrs. Faniff, I'm trying to understand exactly what your opposition is. Is it based upon the 90 days or the residency issue? Because the 90
I think the
day...
90 days is hard to meet.
Okay.
I've seen school building projects, I've seen road safety studies, I've been part of 2 of them. I've filmed Route 9 at Middle Road with the residents closing that intersection. I mean,
Couldn't we increase the time later if they needed to?
I just think that this is so important, and the planning board is part of this. They can waive sidewalks and subdivisions, so I think it's really bigger than just this. And if we're having a master plan with recreation, that should be incorporated in this, and the planning board's doing something. I just think it's a very big project.
Mr.
Challen has something he'd like to say.
Yes, sir. Any guidance, suggestions?
Wisdom.
Roger Challen, 29 Oak Hill Road. No guidance or suggestion, but if the committee appointed for 90 days determined at the end of that time that they really hadn't completed what they wanted to or needed to complete, what are their options to come to your board and do whatever, extend or whatever? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I assume we would just give them as much more time as they needed to complete their objective.
And I want to speak for Ms. Gallagher, but I also don't want to overstate what we're doing here. We're making a priority list, right? Whether we fund that, whether town meeting agrees with the list, et cetera, could be a whole other question.
Yep.
Well, the vote has been taken, Mrs. Faniff. I was just trying to figure out what your opposition was and if it's the 90 days in residency.
My opposition is that there's a certain time period set here, a goal to be achieved, which is a great goal for all of us to achieve. And I don't think there's enough time for public input within 90 days.
Well, why don't we add this condition, because I think we're all in agreement, is that to the extent the 90 days becomes too aggressive and the 90 days is unrealistic in achieving the priorities and the public participation, that we will certainly entertain extending that time period.
Absolutely.
As much time as needed.
And the meetings are to be held in the evening, so the public can participate, which Karen agreed to.
Fine. With those 2 conditions, are you in
Yes.
agreement with the committee? Good. All right, next item, I'd like to get the chief of police out of here, unless he's enjoying this banter. Chief, you want to come up and we'll take your item on the agenda out of order?
Do we need to re-vote while the chief is coming up, or are we staying, is it 4-1?
No, I just said it.
All right, I don't know if you got that. It's 5-0.
So it's all right.
Chief, welcome.
Chief, you have an item on the, I understand you're here for the Public Safety Committee discussion, but you're also here on consent item number 2, appoint Charles Goodwin as part-time communications officer. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We're looking to expand our part-timers. It's odd hours, odd days, so if we can expand the pool a little bit, takes the pressure off some of our regulars who are putting in, a good amount of time.
Excuse me, Mr. Hamilton, don't go far, because I'm going to jump out of line and get you next. I'm sorry.
So
go ahead.
we did a hiring process. We had also a member of the fire department participate. They came up with a list of preferred candidates, and we're still completing a background check on one other subject, but this gentleman is a Southborough resident, Mr. Charles Goodwin. He's actually a full-time telecommunications officer over in Natick. He has a bachelor's degree, so it looks like his training and certifications are all up to date. So we'd like to bring him on, get him trained, and get him into the mix.
Any questions?
None here.
Is there a motion?
Within budget, right?
Do we need a motion, or is this a consent item that we can just?
It's a consent item, but you've been voting your consent items individually lately, so.
I would move to appoint Charles Goodwin as part-time communications officer based upon the recommendation and comments of Chief Paulus. Is there a second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
It is within the budget, Paul. Yeah.
Skipping around to the next item such that Mr. Hamilton can then get home, and I assume he's not enjoying this. Discussion of new charge for Public Safety Study Committee. Mr. Hamilton, I asked Mr. Purple to send you the revised charge in advance of the meeting so that you could take a look at it as chair of that committee. So why don't we start with, and obviously the members of this board have seen the revised charge, and let me just start by asking you if you've, obviously you've seen it, and if you've had any concerns about it, and any comments on it.
No, I think the Al Hamilton, 35 Pine Hill Road, I'm chair of the Public Safety Study Committee. I never quite remember what the right name of the committee is. No, I don't have any particular concerns. This is really driven by the fact that the committee, which was formed in February, was charged by this board with 4 tasks: to review what had been done, and we've done that; to make a list of and evaluate potential sites, and we've narrowed that down to 2 sites, and we've narrowed those 2 sites down to essentially the critical issues associated with each of those sites, those being the DPW site, where the critical issue is access to Route 85, and the existing site where, how do we squeeze things onto that site, or is there the need to acquire some additional land to make that site work? And that then goes into the 3rd item, which was to secure funding for some professional help, which we've done. There is an RFP that is now out. And then the 4th item was to hold meetings with a variety of, with the public and a variety of boards, and we have met with, let's see, the Historic Commission, this board, advisory, and we've held probably about every 2 to 3 weeks, we've held public meetings where we've received some input from the public. So I think at this point, we have, sort of checked off the boxes of those 3 things, and it's appropriate to ask this board to really tell us what they want us to do next in this process, and that's sort of what generated this particular list, which is now to work with the consultant to come up with a site plan. Site plan says, there's a building of so many square feet roughly located here, and if it's the existing site, this is the land that's required to do this. If it's the other site, this is how you solve the access problem, or if we can solve the access problem for a reasonable sum. I think in short order, we will be back to this board looking for a substantial additional guidance. And that substantial additional guidance will be cost goals and what exactly we're going to be asking town meeting for. I personally believe that it is critically important that we put a stake in the ground to say, this is what we believe we can afford. And the reason for that is that if you don't put a stake in the ground saying, this is what we want to pay, may not be what we get. It's like when you go out to the contractor and you want to spend $100,000 and he wants to spend $200,000, you may have to negotiate. But if you don't say you want to spend $100,000, you're definitely going to get a project for $300,000. And so I think you need to put a stake in the ground that says, this is what we think our community can reasonably afford. And I know advisory has begun to do some analysis on this, and I encourage you guys to get with those guys, with the advisory committee, and really focus on what can our community afford. We did some initial analysis, which said that 10 to 15 million was a reasonable stake in the ground. People may not agree with that, but I think it's critically important if we are going to maintain control of the cost, because what I know is that if we tell architects to design things, we don't tell them how much we want to pay, the results will be very predictable, and they will not be to the benefit of the taxpayers of the town of Southborough. The second thing that I think we're going to be looking in very short order to this board for is direction on what exactly we're going to ask town meeting for. And the things that we're going, the real question is packaging. Do you ask for the design only, or do you ask for design and construction money at town meeting? And we don't have a position on that. As my personal position is I think we should ask for both, because I think we can get it if we can keep the costs under control. And that also is a strong lever for maintaining cost control as you move forward into the design phase. The architects have a dollar number that they have to work within. So, but again, I think we're going to be looking to this board as our elected officials to really be placing stakes in the ground to help us say, these are key inputs to our design process, how we're going to package this and how much we would like to spend. I think those decisions, I think, are coming up in the next few months. And I think our charge helps us work with advisory and work with you folks to drive that process forward. So yes, I'm comfortable with the charge as written.
As we've discussed, I agree with you in terms of the overall figure that we need to decide on. I think where we differ perhaps is my desire, and I believe this board's desire, to get back some input from the RFP and then engage in discussion at that point, rather than having the discussion of the number before that. And I think at the end of the day, I think we're going to come out to an agreement on where we get to. I think it's just the steps to get there. We might differ a little bit on it.
I'll just be jotting one note on this subject because you know who I am.
Yeah.
We in my line of business, many of yours, we get RFPs all the time. We submit RFPs all the time. I do not see folks coming to us or us submitting a proposal to a prospective customer that is ballooned, because we think we can get it. It is what I'm looking for, just I want to see what we get back. I'll be shocked if people think that there's an open checkbook, which there is not. And in my line of business, we give the very best product we can give for the very best price we can give because we want to win it. And I'll be looking for the same from those who are. So I understand your concern. I think it's well noted, well taken, well thought through. I would say in my line of business, and I'm expecting it here, I'll be surprised if we get crazy, well out of proportion proposals. So I want to see what we get.
One other thing, Mr. Hamel, I'd just like to ask you to, I think, at least without giving it much thought beyond what you had just said in my thinking at this point, I would be looking for your committee to give us a recommendation on what we seek from town meeting, whether it be design and construction based upon what other towns do. Do you find that be something beyond the ability / charge of your committee, or something that should be reserved to this body here? And the reason I ask that is because I think your committee is acquiring all of this expertise that you would be more capable, if you would, to be giving us a recommendation than trying to have us give the recommendation to you. Again, your thoughts on that?
We can certainly do it that way. Excuse me, it's allergy season. I place great deference to this board because we elected you to govern, and so I think part of the sort of revised vision of the Board of Selectmen is that it is a policy making. It is move more in the direction of being policy making. I think these are important policies. If it's your desire that we would make a recommendation to you, I think we're going to have to do that sooner rather than later. Again, at the end of the day, it's the vote of this board that really carries weight, I think. But so if we're looking at a schedule that has an April town meeting and the need to sell whatever it is that we're going to propose, then this board's going to have to be on record sometime in the middle of the fall as terms of this is what we think we want to do in order to really put the ducks in a row and get that package effectively communicated. The key thing here in all of our efforts is that we have to get to 2/3 on the floor of town meeting and 50% at the polls. This will be the largest tax ask that our community has ever done on any one project, because the schools were paid for roughly 50% by the state. So this is a big tax ask. That's one of the reasons why the recommendation was that we expand the committee and that the voting members all be residents and taxpayers, not for any disrespect to any of the 3 public servants who serve on it, because in fact their participation has been invaluable. but I want to make sure that the people who are voting on recommendations for substantial tax increases are people who will have to bear them.
Well, Mr. Hamilton, I recall a town meeting a year or two ago when you stood up at town meeting and eloquently, advocated for a certain position, and it ended up carrying the day. It was controversial at the time, and that's why I'm thrilled you're on this one. I would love your input, as Mr. Rooney suggested. You're correct. Ultimately, it comes down to us to make that call, but I would love the input of you and other members of the committee.
Okay, we are making a 50-year decision here, and it's hard to look into a crystal ball with any degree of accuracy, so I would like to get the expertise.
I can assure you that in 50 years, I won't care.
Yeah, but I would like to get and the reason I say that is I'd like to get your expertise of your committee on every phase of this project moving forward, because unanimity of your committee, unanimity of this board, unanimity of advisory, and you go right down the line, is going to be important in building a consensus and bringing this to town meeting. And that's the path that we need to take, and we need to maintain that collective unanimity and keep that perspective and vision throughout the entire process. So
Agreed.
I agree, Mr. Rudy. We've got an individual sitting in front of us who is representing our public safety officials, with members of your team and of Chief Morrow's team that literally put their lives on the line, every single day and night. And, we owe it to them to have the very best work product we can out of this. So, again, continued thanks to you for agreeing to, be on the committee and serving as much as you have. We do need that unanimity in order to bring this thing to full measure.
two other things before I let you step down, then I can, to the extent anyone else has any other questions. You and I spoke the other night about additional members to the committee, and that is not on our agenda. Is that still a work in progress?
It is still a work in progress. So one of the things that was taken off the agenda because, if you're going to change the makeup of your committee, that's then going to change, how many people we're actually going to need and give us a chance to re-advertise for this and open it back up. We do currently have 2.5 people who are interested. We don't have an actual application from one person. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you made this change tonight, okay, you would not have a quorum of the committee until the next meeting. So if the board, is there any changes the board wants to make this tonight, this is still a draft form, we could have it on the 9/22 agenda along with appointments. At anyone that is interested, we can bring them in for appointments, and then you can make the change at that time so that the two chiefs and myself, who now become ex officios, non-voting, don't count towards the quorum. You'll at least have enough people on the committee to make up a quorum, even if you still have a vacancy or two.
The last thing I want to do is to have your committee not have enough members to meet or vote.
You could vote to expand the number on the, I can't make a 9/22 meeting,
And make it
unfortunately.
effective.
But you could certainly vote to
At that
expand the
day.
committee on 9/22 and vote the charter tonight with the existing committee and vote to expand on 9/22.
Couldn't we expand the number tonight but make it effective 9/22 or?
Between now and 9/22, there's relatively little work for the committee to
Right,
do.
we're just waiting, we're waiting for the RFP to come in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's coming in on the 18th, and we're hoping that, 22nd's a little ambitious, but the first meeting in October, you're going to have a recommendation in front of you for award for the consultants, so we can get them moving.
So at our next meeting, we can appoint additional members
Yes.
to the committee, and you don't have to be here for that.
So you can change the charge, and then...
And we can change the charge at the same time, and then once those members are appointed, you can get to your business.
Get back to work, yeah.
Yes.
That's correct.
So let's get them in here, because the charge actually includes the makeup.
Right.
Yes,
Right?
that's what I mean.
So we're going to do that all at once and have the folks who are the 2.5 people, or hopefully more than that by then.
Yep.
Will be here then as well.
Yeah, but in case there were any comments...
If you know
and
anybody
the-
who wants
yeah.
to serve, you might try placing their arm behind their back or getting the chief to do it. He's skilled.
I just have one comment about, obviously I agree with the need to have a consensus all around on this. And if you're not getting what you believe is a sort of critical mass of public participation at your meetings by the end of this process, well before the end of this process, I would just ask you to let us know, because much like Main Street, this is something that we definitely don't want people coming to town meetings saying, I didn't even know this was happening.
I would envision that roughly the end of December, we will have sort of a stake in the ground plan for this is what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I would expect that by that time, this board would also be, this board and advisory would be in lockstep. But this is what we can afford, this is what we want, this is how we're going to package it. At that point, I believe the job of the committee is to have 3 or 4 poster boards and to be standing at the transfer station on a regular basis.
And I agree with that. My point is prior to the stake in the ground, because this was the problem 2 years ago when Main Street first came up for a vote, was too many people came to town meeting without any idea of all the years and blood and sweat and tears that had gone into it. And so I'm just not wanting to have that befall you when you're out there at the transfer station with a plan already, folks saying, thanks for telling me now, why didn't I know about this 6 months ago? That's, my strong advice.
I think a 30-minute cable program will cure that.
Yes.
But let's have it before that December stake.
I agree. There needs to be some public information sessions.
Right, but we need
probably
the
in fall.
information. Again, we need to, and I appreciate you, advisory the other evening, there were several of you that were there, and, advisory said they wanted to get a couple of members to do this quick debt capacity subcommittee to take a look at our debt, with myself and with Brian Ballantyne, to take a look at what can we afford, what can we support. That information in conjunction with at least the consultant dipping their feet into the pool, not coming out with what we're going to do, but at least giving them some ideas, then we can start to craft something so that this board can make a decision. This is where we want to be. This is what we want to pay. This is what we want to go to town meeting for.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is, why can't we have the public chew on that a little bit before we make those votes?
You're absolutely correct. I agree with you completely that in fact we probably and should hold 1 or 2 sort of public information sessions that are well advertised to say, this is the work we've done so far. This is why we've made certain recommendations we've made. This is what's happening. I've been known to write in the blog on occasion.
It's similar to the model that they use for the ladder truck.
Yeah.
They had use of this room, just the committee, put together a slideshow presentation for the community to review it.
John, you disagree with me?
Yeah.
Well, in defense of the process, I can say, I know that Mr. Hamilton's meetings are all well publicized, the agendas are out there. I don't think we can ask him to do more in terms of inviting public participation, and maybe it's up to this board. It's up to this board to do a little bit more.
We all can do it.
Yeah. So your first task is, if you know anybody who'd like to serve, place their arm behind their back and
watching on TV.
Tell them how much fun it is.
I understand. I agree, John. My point is, let's just make sure we've done what all that we can.
Yep.
So we.
Right. Chief, you have anything to add on this topic?
Say we're not there yet, but my people are excited. Every time there's a meeting, they want the update, they want to know where it's going, so, they're very enthused as we move forward.
Well, we owe it to them.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Al, very much. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Good night.
You too, sir.
Thanks, Chief.
Getting back to the agenda, public comment. I don't believe that there is any additional comment, but
Doesn't look like it.
Mr. Purple, you have a report?
I have a brief report, just a couple of things. We did briefly touch on the RFP that we have out for the public safety complex site and design study. That RFP is now in the hands of approximately 39 bidders. Pretty impressive number, but again, at the end of the day, it's who actually is going to be submitting a bid to us. There's about 4, I think, bid repositories, warehouses that people can subscribe to that have that information as well. But the rest of them are all firms, most of them in Massachusetts, couple in Connecticut. and one out in the western part of the country, which I think is just interested as to what we're up to out here. We are having on September 10th, 10 in the morning at the fire station, a pre-bid conference. So bidders can come out, they can take a look at the site, they can take a look at the buildings. We'll even give them the opportunity to come down to the transfer station, take a look at the challenges potentially with the access, so that we can make sure that the bids that we get in, people are pretty much giving us the best proposal they can because they've got that information. So that's happening on September 10th.
Would you suggest one of us or more than one of us be at that conference?
If you're interested, I think it's something that the chiefs and I can pretty much handle. Mr. Hamilton said he would be available, and Mr. Lyons potentially to the extent they could.
And
But
that's September 10th?
September 10th at 10 in the morning over at the fire station. So if anyone is available and interested, if you'd like to take the tours again, that would be the time to do it. Last week, Karen Galligan and I met with our counterparts from Ashland, the town manager and the DPW director, to begin to have probably more of a global and timing discussion on the memorandum of understanding that we currently have with Ashland regarding a temporary hookup for MWRA. This was actually done when I was sitting on the other side of the fence, and I was sitting in front of this board, and Mrs. Faniff at the time, so they are looking for, they did get a MassWorks grant, several other funding options to run a permanent indirect connection to MWRA through the town of Southborough. Part of that is going to mean significant improvements to our system, including our pump station, which are going to need to be done anyway. So that is kind of the carrot for us. It's a good regional approach.
Any additional roadway work or?
Not, there will be some additional, and again, I don't have all the details yet as to what road, there is going to be some digging that is going to have to happen. And we're trying to put a time frame together. This is all going to probably be something that would happen, begin maybe sometime next spring. But it's still very preliminary, and I've asked them to take a first stab at putting together the language for a new MOU. Karen is going to sit with the DPW superintendent in Ashland and put together all of the pieces that are necessary to be included as to, what meter are we reading to determine usage, what happens if there's a break, who's responsible for this, who's responsible for that, all of these various pieces. So once that's all done, then we can start to, involve Aldo and get him comfortable with it. And I want to make sure this board has got probably at least 2 or 3 meetings so that any comments, concerns that you have, if you feel it's necessary, we can have the folks from Ashland come in and present to the board, as well, be part of that. So that's just something that's coming forward. I wanted to recognize a couple of people. First is Lieutenant Ken Franks in the fire department. He recently completed the Markway Management course. It's a certificate program that we have. Actually, quite a few people in town have actually gone through and done it. Karen, I believe, is a graduate, so to speak. But it's a pretty intensive 13-week, I believe, 13-week program. Once a week, they get together with similarly situated department heads, managers, and it's a great management course. They come out with a little bit better understanding of time management, managing employees, managing yourself issues. And so Lieutenant Franks has recently completed that. Also want to acknowledge Ashley Tanis, who is our benefits a payroll and benefits person in Brian's office. She recently completed the certificate program that's put out by the Society of HR, Human Resource Management. She did that on her own. And so I just wanted to acknowledge her initiative for doing that, and I think it's great that she wants to further her experience and her education beyond simply just the payroll piece. She really is getting into the benefit piece, and that's going to be helpful to us as we move along. A quick update, received a quick note from Conservation Administrator Beth Rosenblum. You recall that Freddie Gillespie was in front of us asking for approval to waive the connection fee for a new connection. Ms. Gillespie went to Concom, asked them for the same thing. They had a long discussion about alternatives, and my understanding is that she's going to seek those alternatives rather than looking for a new water connection. So they're going to do something on the property, and it's not going to involve a new connection, digging up the road, pave away. So, and the last piece, and I don't know, Ms. Galligan wanted to do it herself, but I just wanted to, since we have the cameras, there is some paving work that's going on that she's trying to clean up. We do have the information up on the website. Vanessa has been liberally tweeting about it, but there is work that's going to be happening, not this week because it's the first week back to school. Buses are still getting themselves familiar with their routes, but next week on Tuesday, September 8th, they're going to be paving over on Boston Road. On Wednesday, September 9th, Boston Road and Central Street. Thursday, September 10th, Breakneck Hill and Sunrise Drive paving. And then beginning on Friday, September 11th, and I think extending into the next week a little bit, Jericho Hill Road, Ledge Hill, Whistler, and Wyeth. So Karen's trying to finish up some of these paving pieces. We tried to have a little bit of a reprieve to get school started, to get the buses going, and now she wants to just finish this up so we can, before the season closes out. So that is all that I have.
Great.
Could I just
Sure.
make 2 comments, Mr. Rooney, if I could?
Yes.
First, I had the opportunity to observe the training that the police department had undergone a couple Fridays ago. Chief and Mark had extended an invitation to that, and it was great to be able to observe firsthand that training exercise. I know when I think of training in my line of work, it's webinars, it's classwork, it's other conferences, but this training environment was really, it just throws you right into situations where these officers need to make, life or death decisions in fractions of a second. It completely immerses you in that environment. It was just great to observe and to see the officer that I witnessed go through that training, all the scenarios that they presented. Sometimes action needs to be taken, sometimes no action needs to be taken, but in each instance, the decision needs to be made in a fraction of a second. Gave me great insight, certainly as future requests are made by the chief, and not only fire chief, but, police chief, but fire chief as well. It just gives more insight into the actual training that those folks undergo. It was great to observe. And lastly, I think that was coincidentally, later on that night, Officer Gallagher was struck on Route 9 in his cruiser, and certainly want to pass along my best wishes for a speedy recovery to Officer Gallagher, and hope he's back full-time soon.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. Consent agenda, approved minutes from July 14th, July 24th, and August 11, 2015. The minutes that were in your packet had some revisions. Does anyone have any issues with what was in the packet?
I think I heard a second.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 3 and 4, these are 2 appointments in which the appointees missed the swearing-in deadline. Number 3, appoint Sean R. Connolly, Connelly, to Open Space Preservation Commission, term to expire June 30, 2020. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Mr. Rooney for discussion.
Okay.
So, if I recall correctly, I may have been a sole voice here, but were either of those, since they both missed, were either of those they both missed getting sworn in, were either of those, put back out in the public domain and re-advertised, Mr. Purple?
No, these were originally on your original annual appointment list.
Right.
They did not get reappointed. You reappointed them a second time They didn't get
So in particular,
reappointed, so they've now reapplied as new applicants. And
so, and it was
to
never.
answer your question, no, it
Never
was not.
reposted. So my concern is in particular with open space, and nothing against Mr. Connolly himself, but regarding committees and boards that have shown recently to have significant levels of purported power. And that would be, in my perspective, ZBA, open space, which we, you and I lived with, and many of our residents lived with the Barn Lane issues for way too long. And also, historical with what we've seen recently. I, in particular, would be one that would like to see since it wasn't re-advertised, I think it should be. I'd love to see, we had 5 outstanding candidates for one library trustee position today. We had 3 great candidates for what was originally 2 positions on the Municipal Technology Committee. I would love to see and hear from Mr. Connolly and 4, 5, 6 others for a position on open space, what their position is on that balance between open space needs of the community, concerns of and respect for residents in those areas, and how they would balance those issues. From my perspective, I would ask to hold 3, and I would love to see that, in particular, that one re-advertised, and see all whom we may get.
I think you make a number of good points, Mr. Kalenda. I think the only question I have, Mr. Purple, is that are there not additional open space membership positions available in addition to Mr. Conley? And so I said that terribly. Let me try that again. In addition to Mr. Conley, are there other vacancies on the committee?
Yeah, I understood the question.
Okay.
It is, yeah.
It was very poorly phrased. but-
There's one additional opening.
Doesn't change my
I understand.
perspective on it, but, so there's even more opportunity for others to put their names forward and to have it fully and maybe even more openly advertised.
Any other members of the committee? Board feel?
I'm comfortable with the reappointment as long as no action has been taken by a member that was not sworn in.
Mr. Shea?
I'm comfortable with appointing Mr. Connolly.
Mr.
And
Go ahead, Mr.
I don't know him. I may. I don't think I do. He may be the very best candidate. We don't know that unless for those committees and boards that have shown in recent years to have that level of purported power and use it that way. I would love to hear their positions on things that may come before them before a point. You may know him. You may know him. Maybe he is the very best. I just don't know that yet, and would love to hear more.
Yeah, I have the benefit of knowing him. I attended a couple of meetings. This is a reappointment. He's been on that committee for at least a year or so, maybe longer than that. So I don't need to re-interview him, and I'd be comfortable reappointing him, but I'd also be receptive and enthusiastic in terms of your additional comments about getting additional members for that commission, or for any committee in particular. But I would have no hesitation in appointing Mr. Conley tonight, though. So again, I would move to appoint Sean R. Conley to the Open Space Commission, term to expire June 30, 2020. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
One.
Number 4, this again is an individual who has been on this committee, the Stewardship Committee, and I believe in the material submitted, he just missed the deadline to be sworn in. So same situation. Again, I do not know Mr. Hinternetter, but I do know that committee has been starving for members for some time. I would similarly move to appoint him to the Southborough Stewardship Committee as Breakneck Hill Cow Fund representative, term to expire June 30, 2016.
Second.
Further discussion?
So he's been appointed, didn't get sworn in. That's the point here.
Correct.
So we have to reappoint.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 5, approved change of name for Class 2 license at 355 Turnpike Road. You'll see in the packet that they were applying for a name change.
Is that out of order? Because I'll be honest, I didn't see that in the packet.
Yeah,
No, it's a single letter, it's following the, application.
I did see that.
It's right there.
I did see that.
Yep.
Got it.
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it as simple as a vote of this board with a license?
That's it. It doesn't require a hearing, it doesn't require any other action other than a vote by the board just to change you're changing the
In
name.
paperwork in the town hall, nothing needs to change? At the assessor's office?
No, you've got a signature, you've got a new license that needs to be signed.
Okay.
I would so move.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
I believe that completes the agenda.
Motion to dismiss?
Motion to
Adjourn.
adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
There's a few items to be signed here before you leave.